Joining us right now is the new manager of the New York Mets, and that's Terry Collins. Terry, Joe, and Evan, how are you?
Good, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
I'm a little annoyed because Terry Collins bumped my one Nets call for a month.
Terry's not. You got off to a bad start.
It's all right, Terry. How you enjoying New York? I know you've been in town for a little bit. You enjoying the beautiful city that you'll get to have as your home now for the next couple of months?
I have been. It's winter wonderland. You know, how can you not enjoy the holidays in New York with all the beautiful lights? And we've had some Christmas parties, and so it's been a bit of a busy session. But I'm anxious to get down and start spring training.
Terry, your thoughts on Cliff Lee, a Philadelphia Philly?
Well, I was shocked. I mean, I really thought he was going to New York and possibly back to Texas. And when I heard the news, it's just I thought, boy, somehow some of those teams just continue to get better. And they've stocked up that pitching in Philadelphia, and they'll certainly be a team you'd be reckoned with. And we're looking forward to the challenge.
Look, I know at the beginning of spring training, I'm the same way as a fan. You say, hey, it's baseball. You never know what can happen. Crazy things can happen. Every team's got a chance to win a World Series unless you're a Pirate fan. But does an acquisition of Cliff Lee kind of dampen the mood looking at a rotation inside your division that is as good as what the Phillies are putting on the field?
Well, I'm going to try to be as optimistic as I can. Obviously, it's a huge challenge, because when you go to play the Phillies, if you get them where you're going to see pitchers 1, 2, and 3 in their rotation, you're going to really have a battle on your hands. But for years, and any time you ever played the Yankees, you got up to play the Yankees because they were the Yankees. And the one thing we have to realize is we just can't. The Phillies is not the only team we have to beat. We've got to beat the other teams in our division, the other teams that we play, and when we play the Phillies, it's going to be certainly a task. But the next day, when they leave town and we got to play the Nationals or the Braves, we still got to be ready to take that on also.
Terry, speaking of rotations, how do you see your rotation right now? I mean, obviously you're looking at Dickey, you're looking at Pelfrey, you're looking at Neese, but how do you see this rotation playing out right now?
Well, those are the three guys right now that are at the head of the rotation. I think Mike Pelfrey's ready to take over that role as the top-end guy, and I think a year in Jonathan Neese, he's going to get better than R.A. Dickey. This might be one of the great stories in baseball to come up and do what he did last year and to continue it. We've got to find a fourth and fifth guy, and there's a lot of names. Dylan G., the way he pitched at the end of the year, is certainly going to be thought about, and right now Sandy is, he's working hard to come up with some other names that we can look in that rotation. And I told him yesterday, one of the bright spots is if you told me today that you have a chance to trade for Johan Santana in June or early July and add him to our staff, that'd be good news. So that's the way we're looking at it.
Do you expect to have one more guy in that rotation as you go into spring training that obviously Joe didn't mention because he's not on the team yet? Do you expect one more guy to be added before the start of camp?
I do. I really do. I think that I don't know who it's going to be yet. Obviously, there are a lot of names being mentioned, but I really think Sandy's going to come up with somebody that give us a fifth guy as we're heading into spring.
Terry, how about the bullpen? I mean, look, you lose Feliciano, you lose Takahashi. I mean, these were two of the better guys, maybe the two best guys in the bullpen. I mean, I know Frankie Rodriguez obviously is still there, but I mean, how do you see this bullpen playing out right now?
Well, that's another challenge that Sandy's facing is to come up with some names of that bullpen. We've got, some guys that are going to return from last year, and K-Rod being one of them. But we've got to find somebody that's going to get us to the ninth inning, and we're searching as best we can to come up with some left-handed pitching. There's some names that are out there that we have interest in, and I know Sandy's going to continue to push forward on that. But until that's done, we're going to have to. As I told him, I said, look, if we can't find the right lefty for us, we need to find somebody who's got good enough stuff, because ultimately the good stuff plays here.
Now, speaking of lefties, and we're talking to Terry Collins, manager of the New York Mets. There's a lefty named Oliver Perez. Now, it's not your decision if he's on the team via cut or not. We'll see if Sandy makes a move with him. But can you see him, A, competing for a rotation spot, which I'm sure a lot of Met fans don't want to hear the answer being yes, and B, could you see him as that left-hander out of the bullpen? Where do you see Perez's role if he's with this team next year?
Well, I really think you got to consider going into spring training. I said this last night to some people that I'm going to go in with 6 or 7 names because I really believe you can't leave spring training with just 5 guys. Maybe the Phillies can, but I know they've got a 6th guy in case one of those other guys goes down. We've got to go into spring training with 6 or 7 names, and Oliver's one of those names because that's what got him to the major leagues. That's what he's been in. I know he's had a tough year. I haven't seen him pitch in winter ball yet. But as we go into spring training, if he's not in one of those guys in rotation, if we feel that he could be one of those lefties in a certain situation to come in, then he's going to be a valuable guy. And those all that'll be determined as we go down the road towards spring training.
It seemed like he had a rough relationship with the former manager, Jerry Manuel. He got buried for like the last couple of months of the year. Have you had a chance to talk to Oliver Perez?
I have not. I talked to him a lot when he was in the rehab, when I saw him in St. Lucie during the rehab, his rehab situations. And, I know he was a little bit down, and we talked about, having some confidence and going out and getting the job done. But I have not talked to him this winter, and I'm hoping to really, we've got a couple weeks left of the Mexican season, and we are right now trying to find out when he's going to pitch, and maybe we can get down there to see him start.
Terry, while we're talking about bad contracts, I mean, the second base situation right now, obviously Castillo is still here. Do you see him? I mean, right now, do you look at him as being the opening day starting second baseman? I mean, how about that position?
Well, I really believe it's open. I really and truly do. We've got 4 candidates that we're going to give an opportunity in spring training for the guy to come out and one of those guys to win that job. And Louis in that mix. Dan Murphy's in that mix. Justin Turner, one of the guys that had a real good year in AAA and is having a great winter ball. And the guy we just got in the Rule 5 draft, Brad Emus, is also in that mix. So. Well, we're going to find some playing time for those guys in spring training, and whoever wins it, wins it.
You didn't mention Ruben Tejada.
Yeah.
Is he not in the mix?
Well, right now, I think Ruben Tejada, really needs a year AAA, and I think he needs to play shortstop. So as we head into spring training, I think that's where we're looking, and, again, those decisions will be made down the road.
Well, we watch spring training very closely here in New York. I remember last year, Joe and I were screaming about Ike Davis and Fernando Martinez. They should make the team. If Tejada comes out in spring training and let's say hits a ton, let's say it's 350, and maybe the other second base candidates don't jump out at you, is there still a chance that Tejada can impress you so much that he could still get that second base job on opening day?
I don't think there's any question that's certainly a possibility that could happen.
Terry, how about Beltran? We had Beltran on yesterday, and, he certainly didn't sound thrilled about playing right field, but certainly didn't sound adverse to playing right field. I mean, have you approached him about that yet? Has anybody done that yet? And do you see him being the right fielder when the season starts?
Well, we actually, when I got the job, I talked to Carlos on the phone, and he probably told me the same thing he's told you guys. He's open to anything that's best for the club, and where all he wants to do is help and win. I just was with him last night, and we talked briefly, and I said, look, when after you finish the winter. When you come into spring training, we will sit down the first day you're in camp, and we will get a direction that you and I are satisfied with, and Sandy will be in that conversation, and all of us will move forward, and whatever decision comes about, we'll all be on the same page with it.
So will you make a decision before spring games are played, or is it going to be kind of like a mini audition out there where you take a look at both guys and then you make your judgment on who you think should be the center fielder?
Well, I would really, in a perfect world, I'd like to do it beforehand. And that's what I'm aiming at, because I don't want – this guy's too good a player and he's too good a guy to bounce around back and forth. And so I want to try, if I can, to head in with a decision before we start the games.
All right. Again, we're talking to Terry Collins, the new manager of the New York Mets. Terry, how about being in New York? I know we saw you a couple weeks ago. We talked a little bit, off the air where you were coming on with Boomer and Carton. But how about that, handling New York? I mean, the media scrutiny, and all of that. I mean, it's a different, you got guys like me and Evan who – scream about the team all summer long. How about that aspect of this job? Because that's a big part of being a manager here in New York.
It is a big part of it, but it's also part of the whole challenge thing. And that's why I took this. That's why I'm still doing what I'm doing. I get up in the morning and I look at the challenges of the day and how can I get something better. And I'm up for it. Even though I didn't understand the language, I was in Japan where, the media coverage, especially for an American manager over there, was, ongoing every day. But it's obviously different. But this is the best stage to be. When you sign that contract, your first day, you hope to be on the biggest stage, and that's why I'm looking forward to it.
Talking to Terry Collins, new manager of the Mets. Now, last year before the season started, there was a flirtation with Jose Reyes hitting third. Are you going to have that flirtation, or can you definitively say today, look, Reyes is my leadoff hitter?
Jose Reyes is my leadoff hitter.
So you're not thinking about moving him around in the lineup?
I'm not moving him around the lineup.
Do you kind of have an idea right now, before you even get to spring training? We still have a couple of months. of where certain guys are going to hit in the lineup? Say David Wright, Ike Davis, Jason Bay. Do you kind of have an idea where you want to pencil them in the lineup?
Yeah, I kind of mess with it a little bit. I'd be crazy if I would. Matter of fact, I'd be lying if I tell you I didn't do it. I've looked at the possibility of Pagan hitting second and David hitting third with Beltran hitting fourth and Jason Bay hitting fifth. That's a pretty good 5 guys. With something coverage from either, no matter if you're facing left or right, we've got some coverage from both sides of the plate. And you look at Ike Davis in that 6 hole. That's a pretty good starting 6 guys right there.
All right, Jason Bay. I mean, we all know what happened last year with concussion. I mean, he wasn't having a great year to begin with. Prior to having that happen out in L.A. I mean, is he fully recovered from that, Terry? And what about your expectations of Bay here in year 2 in New York for him?
Well, I know that I've been spending the last couple of days with Jason. He feels great. He's 100%. He's getting himself in top shape. So when he starts his baseball stuff, he's ready to go. I think he's going to have a big year. Again, when you run this guy out there, he's such a good player. When you run him out there, if we can get him out there 150 games, which is what he's normally playing, we're going to see some good production out of him.
All right, what about Josh Tolley? I mean, everyday catcher in your eyes?
Right now, he's our number 1 guy going into spring training. We signed a very, very good, viable guy to assist there in case something happens, and Ronnie Polino. We've got Ronnie. He's got great numbers against left-handed pitching, and if you need to give Josh a day off, we've certainly got the quality guy to back him up.
How about Ike Davis at first base? I mean, he had a nice rookie year, 19 homers, 70 RBIs, whatever it was. Looked like he hit a little bit of a wall maybe late in the season, but how about Ike coming into this year?
Well, one of the things I think about Ike Davis is, a lot of people talk about that sophomore jinx or the sophomore slump or whatever it is. This guy's a baseball player, and he makes adjustments. That is what was my recommendation when Omar called me last summer asking me if I thought, he was ready to get to the big leagues, even though he had not played that many minor league games. I said he's a baseball player. He'll make adjustments as he goes. He might struggle at times, but he'll learn fast how to get out of those slumps. And as we've conversed here in the last 2 days, that's the first thing he said is, I know what I got to do now. I won't be in a prolonged slump anymore. Hopefully, where it lasts 2 weeks, hopefully I can get out of it in 2 or 3 days, which means he is learning a lot about what it takes to perform up here.
Well, you managed in Houston, you managed in Anaheim, you managed in Japan. What's the biggest thing you've learned from those 3 previous jobs that you take as you begin your tenure with the Mets?
Well, you got to have some patience. I'm a guy that I think there's a way to play the game. There's a way to prepare to play the game. And certainly I'm hoping that the players buy into my system. But I know one thing, I've learned patience. I've learned a lot to be a lot better communicator, and I think it'll work here now.
Terry, are you the kind of guy that if a starting pitcher is pitching well, and I know we're in the world of pitch counts in Major League Baseball, which I hate, by the way, Terry, but that's the way it is. But, I mean, are you the kind of guy that's would you say you're a quick hook guy or a guy that's going to maybe go maybe extra mile with the starting pitcher if he's pitching well?
Well, to be honest, the other team will tell you, when to take a pitcher out. And there are nights, and I've learned one thing from one of the best pitchers I was ever around was Chuck Finley. And Chuck Finley told me in Anaheim, he said, there's nights it's easy. There's nights the mechanics are perfect. You're making pitches. You're striking guys out, or they're not putting the ball in play. Those are the nights you got to let them go. Because those other nights, if you think you're going to take him out just to save him for the next start, you don't know what you're going to get the next start. So, yeah, we might let him ride a little bit, and obviously, we'll concern ourselves with the numbers involved. We aren't going to get crazy, but
right.
We also, those nights that guy's dominating the other team, I'm going to leave him out there.
All right, Friday night, April 1st against Florida. Who's starting for the Mets? Are you leaning towards Pelfrey as the opening day starter?
I am at this moment, yes, sir.
Interesting. Give me a projection on this team. Because I gotta be honest with you. I think I can speak for Evan here, too. We're both big Met fans. I go all the way back to 62, Terry, so I'm an old man. But I have no expectations for this team. I really don't. I mean, I don't expect much. This, to me, is a rebuilding year. I mean, what expectations do you have for this team? Can this team be an over 500 team in your mind?
Well, in my mind, we can be. And number one, you guys talked about expectations. I have huge expectations of myself, and as I talk to these players in the last 3 weeks since I've had this job, listen to them talk, they have expectations. Now we got to go perform. There's no question about it. But, if we keep them on the field, if we keep this lineup intact to where you look up and David gives you 158 like he normally does, or 155, and Jason gives you 150, and Jose Reyes is out there 150 times, all of a sudden, this is a good baseball team. Now we've got to pitch. We've got to catch it. I don't think we have a pitching staff that's got a number of strikeout guys in the rotation, so we've got to play good defense. But again, I think it comes to, there was an old saying I heard many years ago, sometimes it's not the best team that wins, it's the healthiest team that wins. And so that's certainly where we're directed at.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, this certainly hasn't been the healthiest team the last couple of years, so hopefully the luck will start to change. That's the hope as Met fans. But Terry, welcome to New York. Enjoy the next couple of days here, and we appreciate you giving us a few minutes.
Thanks,
guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot, Terry. Happy holidays to you as well. Terry Collins, the new manager of the Mets.